Let's look at a way to give surveys to our students through Google. And the application that does that is called Google Forms. I've given a lot of these, maybe in the hundreds. And so for me, it's super quick and easy. That said, there is a little bit of a learning curve. So as you're trying out your first Google form or two, uh, it's okay if it's taking a little bit of time. After you've done a few, it'll pick up pretty quickly. And this is something that I can do like during passing time between classes. I can put together a quick form and have it submitted to my students. So you'll get there. First things first, how do we find or start a Google form? There's a couple different ways you can do this. When you are in Chrome and you go over here to our application menu, if you scroll right here, you can start a Google form just like that. That's not the way that I do it because I like my Google Forms to be filed or be located where I can find them more easily. If you're in your Google Drive, I like to be in the folder that I want to house my form. If I go into my mythology class folder, I actually have a folder here just for surveys because I was giving my students almost weekly surveys during this class. Let's say that I want to put my survey into this speech class. All right, so when we click on new here, you might be familiar with this because you start new Google Docs or Sheets or Slides. We do have to go to more, and this new menu pops open and there's a Google form. So we'll click on a new Google form and it shows up. I forget to do this sometimes, but let's title it. This is what the students or whoever is taking your survey will see when they open it up. Best form ever. I can add a description here. I think that's helpful to let them know why you're giving the survey or what you're looking for. If I come over here and I click on the title, this auto fills, and I can change that if I want. It's really important to get a title so that if it's not filed somewhere where I can find it easily, I can use that search function in my Google Drive to find my form. So now we have a title, we have our questions here, we're ready to go. Okay, we started our form, we're ready to go. You see this little box of menu options over here. This is where we go to start adding questions. The plus on the top, pretty easy. Add a question. There it is. Question box pops up. We'll work with that in just a moment. Some other things you can do, if you're just getting started, this is really the only one you need to worry about. You can import questions that you'd saved. This one's kind of cool. If your survey is a little bit longer and has different sections, you can add section titles or headings. Um, you can add an image into your form, add a video, and finally, you can chop your form into different sections or pages. But if you're just starting out, don't worry about any of these, but add a question. So, how was your week? Now I write, how was your week? Google is intuitively kind of guessing what type of question I put there, and it's reading my question and saying, well, maybe you want a linear scale, and the kids can choose, or your respondents can choose 1 to 5. I can label what a 1 is, bad, 5 is awesome, and they should be able to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Now that's Google's best guess. I'm not locked in. I can change that. If I want them to write about how their week was, I would just change this to, how about a paragraph? And now the students have a box there that they can type their answer. If I want to force them to answer their question, I click on required. Now I'm not going to go into every single type of question here. That's going to be kind of up to you to play with and investigate. But I have my question here. Let's add another one. Which option works best? I'm curious what Google will think works here. Which option works best? It's stuck with multiple choice, which I think is pretty good. I can stay with multiple choice and I can add, whatever I want here. Let's add B. I can add C. I can add as many options as I want, and I can delete them. I do like using different types of questions here. You can kind of work with those. Check boxes would allow respondents to choose more than one question. Multiple choice, you're zeroed into one. Short answer and paragraph are pretty similar. You're getting a box to write in. Those are pretty cool. Here we have a survey that I gave to my students after the first week of our distance learning. I wanted to collect some feedback on how that week went, how I had set up the class. I tried to keep it somewhat short and simple. Separate first and last name. A common mistake that folks make is that they just say, they make one box for here's your name, and you get all sorts of different responses in there, even the most well-meaning students. And I want to be able to sort my answers by last name. And so I do need a separate box for last name. So there's a trick for you. First name, last name. If you're teaching multiple classes of the same hour, definitely add a third box that says what hour are you, and give them multiple choice options. They have to get their own, you have to make the options or the choices for them. Otherwise, first hour you will get one. You will get one ST first. You'll get kids who spell out FIRST. You'll get kids who spell one, and you can't sort. It's just a mess. If you want kids to be putting in their hour, give them multiple choices, give them the answers. Overall, how are things going for you? What worked well for you this week? Were there any obstacles or challenges? And then I asked them, about how much time um, did it take you to do this work each day. Now, once these responses start coming in from kids, you can see right here, I can toggle over to responses. This is the analytical data that I can scroll through. I can see all their responses for the 8 kids who have answered so far. When you have multiple choice or check boxes and questions like that, the cool thing is that you'll get pie charts here or bar graphs depending on the type of question that you ask. So those are kind of cool to see. Now that I've got my form completed, I need to get it into the hands of the people who I want to take the survey. And as usual, there are kind of multiple different ways to do this. This send button, though, is going to give you some other options. When I click on send, I have some different options up here. I don't recommend the email. Email is good if I'm sending it to a handful of people and they're in my address book and I can type in their emails. If I'm sending this to 30 or 60 or 100 or 200 students, I'm not sure email is the best way to do that, but next to the email is this link. So similar to the preview button, I now have the link that I can highlight and copy, or just click on copy, and I can paste that link in a place where students can access it. Click on it, opens up the survey. Here's something that I have not done a lot of, but I'm curious about shortened URL. Oh, even better. So there's a shorter link that I can give them. So that's how we'll get this survey into their hands. Send and get the link. Want to leave you with just a couple of tips or tricks here as you start working with the Google form. There are 100 different things you can do with this. You can have lots of fun with these. But again, my goal here was short and simple, slick, get it in the hands of students, start getting some good information back from them. First things first, when I go up to my settings here, notice that I can collect their email responses. Now, if I want to keep my form responses completely anonymous, the default is off. So when you start your new form, this will not be selected and you will not know who is sending in this form. But if I click on this, now it's going to ask them for an email. And if you're operating within a Google Enterprise program, like through a school, this will require the students to be logged in with their school account. So I really like this. It prevents outside people from being able to take the form. Every once in a while, a student will use a private account to log in and they'll say, hey, I can't open the form. It's because you got to log in with your school email address and this will collect those emails. So I do like that option. Here's something that's kind of fun, shouldn't take too long. If we go up to our paint palette up here, we can customize our theme. There you go. You get an image at the top, you get a colored background. Google has all sorts of preloaded images in here. Um, there's a cool book. Finally, let's take a look at how we view our responses. Now, you may have noticed that I have this responses tab here. So I can toggle back and forth between the responses I'm getting. So far I have had 8 people respond to this survey. I can go back to questions. I can still edit my survey. If I go to responses, this is sort of gives me some analytics about what people have entered. Now, I have a bank of responses here, and I don't remember, okay, who, instead of having to go back and forth between the person's name and the response, what I need is a spreadsheet. So we have the Google Sheets image over here. Click on that, and this is going to open up, move myself out of the way here, a Google spreadsheet. The first time you click on that, it'll ask you, do you want to create a new spreadsheet? Yes, absolutely. And so now we have all of their responses here. Now, when I open up my spreadsheet, it's going to give me a timestamp. This is somewhat interesting sometimes to see when they submitted their survey, but normally this kind of just gets in my way. I like to click on this little arrow, this little triangle that shows up, and I can hide that column. And now I can go into my cells and I can manipulate how the information is stored. I can clip their responses to make them a little shorter, or I can do the wraparound. And so now I can see this was this person's response. That should have hit. Hide that column. I don't want to see dates. There we go. If this is information that I want to share, I can project this in front of my class. Then I go up to the name columns and I hide names. I can make this anonymous. I can hide those columns and I'll have my responses. So this might be a way to offer up a review question or something to think about, and we can project these answers. We can talk about what people are submitting. If I get a really good answer, I might say, all right, does anyone like to claim this one? Who entered this? Knowing full well that I have collected their emails and their names, so if something gets on here that might be not school appropriate, they know that I can open up these columns and follow up with whoever is submitting these responses. So there's my spreadsheet. The cool thing is this spreadsheet is stored in the same place that my form was. So when I go back to my Google Drive in my speech folder, there is my speech distance learning survey that I created. Here is the spreadsheet with the responses. So there they are, Google Forms or surveys. I have found them to be an extremely useful tool for collecting information from students and colleagues. Best of luck to you. I hope that goes well for you. Stay connected, everybody.